All right, take three. Good morning, my name is Steve Morris, and I want to follow up or continue talking about this idea for systems engineers to give lawyers competition in the area of writing law or code, statute, and also running against politicians to be change control agents. So people who prevent bad code, bad law from being introduced into US code. While I was an SAP consultant, I started out technical, database administrator, networking, hardware, software, patches, upgrades, third-party software, all that kind of stuff. It was my job to make sure that the underlying system was available and powerful enough to meet the company's functional needs. And over the course of my career, I moved up from a junior engineer up to a regular engineer to a senior consultant or senior engineer to a manager to a senior manager to eventually played the role of technical architect for the Vaccines for Children's program, VTREX system at the CDC. That's a whole nother story. Well, actually, it's kind of the same story, but for this purpose, for this conversation, we won't dive deep into that project. One of the things that I learned over my career was that when you implement a new system into a company, what you're essentially doing is organizational change management. So, when I worked for Deloitte and Touche, what was interesting to me later was that was kind of early in my career, but what was interesting to me later was that Deloitte and Touche offered organizational change management services, but it was separate from the regular project. And what I found out over time is that when you're doing an implementation, it is organizational change management. And I think that, I don't know, what's kind of wild is I think that these big five or big four companies, they liked for their clients not to order their OCM services, because what that did is make the project longer and more costly. So it was good for the consulting firm if you didn't implement organizational change management methodologies into the implementation. What I'm proposing in giving the lawyers competition, it's going to require some change management. It's introducing, some new ideas and new people into a system that is old and very entrenched. The American Bar Association has had a monopoly on writing code for the United States since at least the 1930s. I don't know exactly when everything, they've written into law that you can't practice law without being a lawyer, and that's that to me is pretty silly. That's kind of like saying that you're not allowed to do your own accounting. And then, if you do your own accounting these days, they say, well, you're going to be missing a whole bunch of stuff. Well, that's the whole point, is that the Lawyers Guild has, they've been without competition for so long that I don't think that they're going to be able to compete with anyone. So they're going to be extremely resistant to having people compete with them. And, you know, there's no doubt about that. The way that I think that we can achieve this is, it's kind of a field of dreams kind of way. Is if you build it, they will come. So what we have right now is what systems engineers, or a lot of systems engineers, refer to as a wicked problem, and that is a problem that is so complex, has so many players, has so many relationships, is the organizations that are part of the problem are so old and in their ways of doing things that it's almost impossible to change anything that would be of value. And the problem is ever changing, and the people who created the problems are in high positions, old entrenched positions, and they're going to be very influential in preventing change from coming, because, you know, essentially their jobs are on the line. So the way that we deal with wicked problems, you know, you can either do it the Democrat and Republican way, which is, you know, just continue to blame each other for your combined failures, or we systems engineers, you know, we can start from scratch. Now that doesn't mean that, you know, we destroy the system and then we force everybody to start using this new system that we haven't designed yet, or built or tested. What we do is we start over with the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, the Declaration of Independence, all the notes that were taken during these exercises, or the ratification of these documents. And we start over. We get rid of the 3/5 compromise in the Constitution. We debate whether it would be better to have a confederation like the Swiss. I'll be talking a lot about this because the Swiss, they made their original constitution, or at least their most modern version of it, back in 1840. And so they had an opportunity to study the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. And I think that, you know, I have to look back over my notes, but I'm pretty sure that they went with a confederation, but they blended in portions of the Constitution. And it's a pretty powerful combination. They're doing extremely well. They don't have all the crazy division and infighting and nonsense that we have here in the United States with our two-party system. So that's something worth exploring. But you know, we're not going to be able to change the system from within. So what we do is we create a new constitution, and we start writing laws that take care of the same issues that our current laws are taking care of. Now, right now, we've got, you know, federal laws. There's like 10,000 something or other of them. And then there's around 10 regulations for every law. You know, our tax code is technically only like, I don't know, just under 2,000 pages, but then there's around 70,000 pages of jurisprudence around it. So it's you know, just the way that law is set up is it's set up to be spaghetti code, as we call it in the software engineering world. is so twisted and convoluted that, unless you're the creator of that code, you can't find or make any sense of it. So what I'm proposing is we as systems engineers, we take the methodologies and disciplines that we've created over the last 5, 6, 7 decades for software engineering, and we morph that into a statute engineering industry. And we come up with ways to test statute, pilot it somewhere before we introduce it to the entire United States. Or even better yet, that's something worth mentioning as well, is that we limit the scope of the federal system, and we do a good job of limiting that. That's one of the things that the Constitution does a terrible job of, is preventing scope creep. So essentially, all the powers that the states and the people had before the federal government got really, really, really strong in taking over all these responsibilities. Basically, it's the central planners in Washington D.C. that they make the rules, and then all the states just kind of follow. And I think that's part of the two-party system as well. So I think that's a result of the two-party system. It's like, well, our higher-ups in D.C. want to do it this way, so we're going to follow suit. So that independence is lost. But we take the original intent of the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation and the Declaration of Independence, and then we take the laws of the United States. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because there's so many laws that it's impossible to try to recreate those in a sensible manner. So what we do is we take Article 1, Section 8, and we figure out what statute is attached to that foundation, and we make laws around it. And then, we've got more than 500 agencies, federal agencies in the United States. And then there's a bunch of state agencies too, so there's a lot of duplicity there, or redundancy. And redundancy is good in some cases, but it's really better to have redundancy, at certain levels. Not, we're going to have a health department or health secretary of education or secretary of health at the state level, and one at the federal level. There's no real reason to have that. But we figure out where the federal government has usurped state and local responsibilities, and we start writing laws and procedures to restore that power and responsibility back to the state and local levels. So one of the things that the Swiss do, and I think they do quite well, is they operate under a system of subsidiarity, and that means that government power and control is located at the closest level that you can do with efficacy. So it's like over there, they're counties or cantons. Their health programs are done at the county level. They're not done at the Confederate level. Education, all at the local level. Military, at the Confederate or federal level. So you can kind of see where I'm getting at here, is that personal family choices you make in the home, and then whatever you can't do there is like a fire department. You need to do that at the at the community level, at the county level. And then for our states, it's National Guard type of things, and I mean, most things can be done at the county level. So really, the number of laws, federal laws, should be extremely small, and all states should adopt that federal law. The number of state laws should be, probably on par with the number of federal laws, not too many of them. And then the number of county or local laws, those probably, there'll be more of those than you have than at the state or the federal level, but there'll be different kinds of laws. Those will be laws that are around local problems. And what you'll find is that, what works well for one community, other communities will adopt. So it's kind of like, it's not like you're going to have, different laws all over the place that conflict with each other. It's a situation where conflicting laws, actually one law will end up winning out over the other for use, just because it works better. And then other times, what works in Alaska, it may not work for here in Georgia. So those things, will be different, but the same kind of, because, we have rights. So you always have to consider rights when making a law. But I think that I'm going to be talking a lot more about the Swiss model that I saw and how we can apply it here, because the Swiss copied us back in the 1840s, and I think that they are fulfilling the founders' original intent way better than our modern politicians are. They're neutral. That's one of the things that our founders wanted us to be. Local, or home self-rule. That's going on over in Switzerland. People being independent, not having to rely upon the government in order to feed themselves or shelter themselves. The Swiss are doing extremely well at that. All the things that we wanted to be, the United States wanted to be back in the early days, the Swiss have accomplished that through Confederation, and they're not the world's police. A lot of people think that we need to be. I don't believe that. I think we can choose who our trading partners are better, and that will allow us to influence people more than anything, is who we're willing to trade with. And I'm not saying embargoes, because if somebody else wants to trade with them, let them trade with them. But we can do a better job of who we work with and who we enrich through trade. But that's my thoughts on the obstacles that we're going to face with trying to compete with the lawyers. Is I know that they're there, but we've got to build something better. It's kind of like this Build Back Better thing, the Great Reset. We're going to have a Great Reset. There's no way around it. Like the momentum is carrying us there. But what we have to do is build back without all this central planning and all these central planners who've created all the mess that we have right now. We have to build back without them. And we will build back better that way. I mean, they're not going to build back better for us. They're going to build back better for them. I think that their idea is build back without us. So, or without our input. I'll get more into this because I think I brought it up, but The Innovator's Way, great book by Denning and Dunham. They show how to identify disharmonies and harmonies within systems, how to blend out the disharmonies, how to blend in new harmonies that work with the system. So we've got an exciting road ahead of us. I was a little skeptical about Dr. Shiva's movement here at first, but the more that I read in the forums and the more information that I see him put out, I tell you what, I think it's our best shot. And I'm looking forward to working with all the other truth, freedom, and health warriors and volunteers and just people who are interested in a better future, really. So I hope you all get something out of this video. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. At least I know what was going on. If you give me a thumbs down, I'm okay with that. Poke holes in any of my ideas or theories. One of the things that I'm pretty good at is if you break one of my ideas or something, then it gives me an opportunity to try to shore that up or plug that hole, and make it better. So if you give me a thumbs down, just tell me what's wrong or what you think that's wrong, and I can learn from that. So again, I hope you have a great day. My name is Steve Morris, and remember that the end is far.